Theory in a nutshell. This time we're going to talk about harmony and the basics of voice leading. So what does voice leading mean? There we go. It is the process, essentially, of moving from one chord to another chord. And we're using the vocal chorale style, calling them soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, the 4 different voices we have. And there are certain rules and things we have to avoid when doing this. There's a lot of them, actually. But these are the basics here, okay? So, rules. 1, you cannot have more than an octave between the alto and the soprano, or the alto and the tenor. You can have more than an octave between the bass and the tenor. That's fine. I don't have it here, but you can. If that note was lower or that note was higher, you can have more than an octave there. But not between the tenor and the alto, or the alto and the soprano voices. Okay? Really important to remember that rule. Now, don't cross the voices. Do not cross those voices. Here, you can see that here's a middle C in the alto, and the tenor is the E above middle C. So it's actually up here, right? That E is above middle C because this line is middle C. So I've crossed the voices. My tenor went above my alto. You can't do that. You can't cross the voices, okay? Be careful about that. And the third one is you cannot have parallel unisons, fifths, or octaves. Now, what does that mean? It means that I didn't follow the correct rules here. So when I set out these 2 chords right here, I ended up with them because I didn't follow the rules, which we'll talk about in a minute, the other rules. This is an octave right here between the bass and the tenor. That's fine. I can have an octave right there. But I can't have it in the next chord in the same 2 voices. So bass, tenor, both of these are an octave. That's called a parallel octave. Same with the fifths. I don't have one in here, but if I had a fifth between these 2 and those 2, I couldn't, like the alto and the alto soprano, you can't have a fifth in 2 chords side by side. Okay, those are called parallel fifths, parallel octaves, or parallel unisons. And there are 2 rules of thumb that can help us to avoid those faulty parallels. Okay, 2 rules of thumb. We have 2 thumbs, 2 rules. All right. Rule of thumb number 1. If there are notes in common, which means if one chord and the next chord beside it share a note, they have the same note in it, you keep that note in common in the same voice, and the other voices go to the nearest available position. Let me show you how we do that. Now, I wrote it again up here for you. When you're doing this work, it's a really good idea underneath, especially if you're new to it, to write out the notes that you're dealing with. So this is in C major, and this is a dominant triad. So I'm going to do G, B, D. This is the tonic triad, so it's C, E, G. Now, right now, we're only dealing with triads in root position. So these Roman numerals, with no little numbers after them, just plain old Roman numerals, tell us that these chords are in root position. When they're in root position, we're going to double the bottom note, because there are 4 notes here, and there are only 3 in the chord, in the triad. Right, we're going to double this first note. So there'll be 2 of them. One goes on the bottom in the bass, and then one goes up top. Now, these 3 notes, it matters, but it doesn't really matter what order you put them in to start out with. I mean, there are certain rules, like the soprano. Here's another little rule for you. You can't go above the G. You're not going to be up into the stratosphere here. Okay? But you want to have them spaced out a little bit. Okay, so I've got G, G, B, and D. I've got all my notes. 2 G's, that's why I underlined it, a B and a D. Now, the note that's in common is this G. You can see there's a G in both of these chords. The bass note is a given. So the bass, the C, goes down here. And then this G stays in the alto. Okay, it stays right on the same line. These ones are going to move to the closest available position. Now, I had the C and the G already, so we got one of these and we got that. So we needed another C and E. You'll see that one or more notes may have a big jump in it or something. Be careful about that. You don't want a big jump. For example, this D could have gone to the C or the E. But this B right here, the C is here, but the E would have been a jump up or a jump down, And you don't want that jump, especially the jump down. You don't want that jump, okay? So the closest available for this one is C, which leaves E for that one. We're going to do one at the end, so you'll understand a little bit better, I think. Second rule of thumb, if there are no notes in common, the upper three voices move in contrary motion, so that means the opposite motion to the bass. So here, we're in C major again. This time we have a subdominant to a dominant triad. F, A, and C, G, B, D. We're going to double the F, we're going to double the G, we're going to double the root. So F, F, A, C. Okay. Then, when we're going to do this one, we have to put the G in the bass because it's in root position. That's the root. But this FAC and this GBD have no notes in common. There's nothing the same. So this bass went up, and each one of these went down to the closest one they could go to. Okay? You wouldn't all of a sudden put this F way down to the B, right? Because you want to get to the closest one it can go to. So it takes a little bit of thinking sometimes. So the F went down to the D, A down to the G, C down to the B. They move in contrary motion to the bass to their closest available position. So let's do a little exercise here. So we're in D major now, and we have 1, 4, 5, 1. Okay, so the notes of the 1 chord are DFA. The notes of the 4 chord, GBD, G, ACE, and DFA. Yes, I know it's a C sharp and an F sharp, but there's already key signature there. So the way I do it, I just put the notes down. You're quite welcome to put F sharps and C sharps if you want to. Okay, so we know that this first chord has the D in the bottom. It's given to us, but if it wasn't given to us, we'd put the D in the bottom because we're going to double this D. And we've got DFA, so let's go, I don't know, D, F, A. Okay, so I don't have more than an octave here. I don't have more than an octave here. I'm good. Haven't crossed anything. It's all good. Okay, is there a note in common between 1 and 4? Yes, there is. It's the D. So the first thing I do, is put that D right there in the same place. Okay, now I've got my G and my D. I need another G and B. So I'm going to double that G. So a G and a B. Well, this F can go to the G, or it can go way up to the B, or it can way down to the B. So it's not, I don't want it to do big jump, but let's check this one. This A can go to the G or the B. So this is the only one that could jump. So let's go this to the A. We don't want to the G. We don't want to jump. We want closest available position. So that G will just rise to that. The F will rise to the G, and the A will go up to the B. Now we have G, G, B, D. Okay, the bass went down, like the bass notes did what they were supposed to do, and we kept the note in common here, and the other ones moved to closest available position. Now here, our bass is moving up. We're going 4 to 5, and there is no note in common. Anytime you have like a 1 to a 2, or a 4 to a 5, or a 5 to a 6, anything side by side like that, you're not going to have a note in common. Okay, so we remember our second rule of thumb, the upper three voices move in contrary motion to the bass. So our A is here, that's moved up. So if this bass is moving up, these move down. We've got our A, now we in ACE. So we're going to put these as close as we can. So the closest one to the D would be the C. Closest one to the G would be an E. Closest one to the B would be an A. A, A, C, E. We have dropped all of these notes down because we're going contrary motion to the bass. Now, between 5 and 1, okay, we have a note in common, the A. So we already have the bass doing what it's supposed to do. Right, the bass notes are in there for us. The A we keep in common. There it is. Okay, same voice. Now, we have 2 Ds, so we have to add a D and an F. Okay, so we're just going to move these right up here. Closest available position, D, F. if I had moved this down to the D here, let's just try that. Let's see what happens. I'll show you if we don't go closest available position. So let's move this E down to the D. And then this C either has to go up to the F here, which is more than an octave, or down to the F here, which is a huge step and we don't, a huge leap, and we don't want to do that. That's a leap of a fifth. We can't do that. That's not the closest available position. So that's why this is going to F, and this one's going to the D. And now, see, everything is nice and kind of spread out a little bit. There's no kind of huge jumps anywhere. That's what you want. And there's nothing crossing. There's nothing weird here. It's all kept the notes in common, kept the notes in common, went in contrary motion to the bass. Okay? So this is the very first little bits of voice leading, the basics. Hope this helped.